Olivia never imagined the moment she'd see her boyfriend standing under the warm jewelry store lights, holding an engagement ring, would be the moment her heart splintered. From where she stood, the diamond glimmered like a cruel truth, and the smile on his face felt like betrayal carved in daylight. But when he turned, when the ring shifted in his hand, everything she believed about him and their future would shatter and rebuild into something she never expected. Because the ring wasn't for another woman. It was for someone she didn't even know existed. Hello, my friends. I am Olivia, and this is Olivia's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. My name is Elena, and I've always been the kind of woman who falls too carefully. I measure every emotion, triple-check every sign, and hold my heart like it's a fragile thing made of thread and breath. Maybe that's what happens when you grow up in a home where love is loud only when it's angry. But Mark, my boyfriend, made everything feel quiet in the right way. He wasn't dramatic, he wasn't flashy, he was steady. The kind of man who fixed my broken kitchen drawer without being asked, who remembered how I liked my coffee without looking at his phone notes, who brushed my hair behind my ear like it was a habit he never wanted to break. I needed that steadiness. I needed to feel chosen. I needed to believe love didn't always disappear. We'd been together 2 years, and lately, tiny signs hinted he was planning something. He'd taken sudden interest in my jewelry preferences, he'd asked my best friend suspicious questions about ring sizes, and he'd been smiling at me a lot, the kind of smile that feels like a secret cradled between lips. So when he told me he was running errands on Saturday morning, I didn't think twice. I just missed him, and I missed the version of myself I became around him, soft, hopeful, brave. I was walking downtown, the winter air brushing the city with a quiet chill, when the warm golden glow of Graham Jewelers caught my eye. It was the same store he'd once lingered in front of, pretending he wasn't looking through the glass. I don't know what made me stop. A whisper of intuition? A pull of curiosity? But the moment I stepped closer, my breath froze. Inside the store, under a halo of soft lights, stood Mark. Not browsing. Not wandering. He was holding an engagement ring, small, elegant, sparkling with a delicate confidence I never felt I deserved. And he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him. Beautiful, graceful, smiling. My chest tightened like the world was shrinking around my ribs. I pressed myself against the window frame, the faint hum of traffic blurring into a low, trembling vibration. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but his face, God, the softness in it, felt like a knife. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't conflicted. He looked proud. Then the woman touched his arm. Laughing. Cozy. Close. My heart cracked. He turned slightly, lifting the ring box, and the diamond caught the light in a brilliant, merciless flash. And just as his face shifted toward the window, just as I realized he might see me, I noticed something in his expression I couldn't explain, something that didn't look like love for a woman at all, but heartbreak. And then he turned fully, ring in hand, and I saw who the woman beside him truly was. When Mark finally turned toward the window, my breath snagged in my throat, not because he'd seen me, but because the woman beside him shifted enough for me to see her face clearly. She wasn't another woman. She wasn't his secret lover. She wasn't even close. She was young, maybe 16, maybe 17. Her eyes were shaped like his, soft at the edges. Her smile had the same crooked left corner he got when he tried to hide his nerves. And her hair, dark, wavy, familiar, looked exactly like the old pictures he'd once shown me of himself as a teenager. My heart didn't break. It dropped, fell through me like a stone falling into deep water. She looked like him. And in one terrifying instant, realization hit me with a cold, sharp clarity. This girl might be his daughter. A daughter he never told me about. Suddenly, the air around me felt thinner, like the whole city was inhaling and I couldn't catch a breath. Cars rushed behind me, a rising tide of noise that blurred my thoughts. My fingers trembled as I pressed them to the window, watching them from a distance I couldn't cross. He had a daughter? A whole human being? A whole life he never mentioned? The girl was laughing now, lightly nudging Mark's arm as he opened the box again. The two of them looked like a family, a real one, not the fragile, hopeful one I thought we were building. Every answer I never had about Mark, why he guarded parts of his past, why he avoided certain topics, why he sometimes stared into nothing with a sadness heavy as dusk, suddenly felt like it was clicking into place. But it wasn't a comforting click. It was the sound of something inside me fracturing. I took a shaky step back, cold wind brushing across my cheeks. I didn't even know if he saw me. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd look up and find only the memory of me pressed against the glass. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Something in me needed to understand. Because if he kept her a secret, if he hid something this big for 2 years, then what did that make our relationship? What did that make me? Just then, the girl, his maybe daughter, said something that made Mark's shoulders stiffen. The ring box snapped shut with a soft click, barely audible through the glass, but the tension was unmistakable. His jaw tightened, his eyes lowered. The warm store lights washed over him, but he seemed suddenly dimmer, swallowed by some heavy thought. The girl's expression softened. She reached out, touched his hand gently, like she'd done it 1,000 times. Comforting him. Reassuring him. Familiar. I felt like an intruder peering into a moment I shouldn't see. Then, without warning, Mark exhaled sharply, turned, and his eyes landed on me. Recognition flashed across his face. Then, shock. Then something like fear. For a split second, we were frozen. Him inside the warm glow of the jewelry store, me outside in the winter cold, separated by a sheet of glass and a truth neither of us had spoken. He took a step toward the door. His mouth parted, like he was about to say my name. My pulse hammered as I stumbled back, stumbling into the breeze that whipped down the street. Because I suddenly understood. He wasn't just hiding a daughter. He was hiding the reason she didn't know I existed. I wanted to run. God, everything inside me screamed to run. But my legs were frozen, my breath trapped in my chest as Mark pushed open the jewelry store door. A soft bell chimed above him, its delicate ring cutting through the street noise like a blade. He didn't yell. He didn't demand an explanation for why I was there. He just said my name, quiet, strained. Elena. The kind of voice a man uses when he knows the truth is dripping through the cracks he's tried so desperately to seal. Behind him, the girl lingered inside the store, her face shadowed by confusion. She mouthed, "Who is she?" But Mark didn't look back. He stepped toward me as if each movement cost him something. The winter wind swept between us, carrying the faint thrum of traffic, the distant rumble of a bus, and the soft rustle of a plastic bag drifting against the curb. Everything felt too loud, too sharp, too real. "Who is she, Mark?" My voice cracked like thin ice. "And why did I just watch you buy an engagement ring with her?" He closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, pain flickered across his features, raw, unmasked, almost unbearable to look at. "Alina, please, let me explain." "Not here." "No," I stepped back. "Here, right now, before I lose my mind." For a second, he looked like he might fight me on it, but then his shoulders sagged and he nodded. "That's my daughter," he said quietly. "Her name is Maya." And there it was. The truth. But instead of giving me clarity, it only carved deeper questions into me. "I didn't know you had a daughter," I whispered. His jaw clenched. Because she didn't know she had me." My breath hitched. "What?" He glanced back toward the jewelry store. Maya watched us through the glass, worry softening her young face. "She found me 6 months ago," he said. "Her mother, my ex, never told her. I didn't know either. Not until she showed up with a letter and a DNA test. And by then," he swallowed hard, "she'd spent her whole life thinking her father didn't want her." A cold ache bloomed in my chest. "Mark, why didn't you tell me?" "Because she asked me not to." His voice trembled. "She didn't want anyone else involved. She barely trusted me. She said if I told my girlfriend, it would feel like I was replacing her before I'd even earned the right to be her dad. I was trying to give her time." His eyes shone, not with guilt, but with grief. "And the ring?" My words were barely a whisper. "Maya's 18th birthday is tomorrow," he said. "She wanted a promise ring. Not romantic. A symbol, I'd stay, that I wouldn't leave her again." The world seemed to tilt beneath me. A promise to stay. A promise he never offered me. A promise he kept secret. My throat tightened. And what about us? Was I supposed to stay in the dark forever? "No." He stepped closer. "I was going to tell you tonight. I swear, Elena, I didn't want to lose you." I opened my mouth to respond. But suddenly, Maya pushed open the jewelry store door, fear written across her face. "Dad!" she called out. "Dad!" The word hit him like a shiver. And it hit me like a revelation I wasn't ready for. She ran toward us, and the look in her eyes told me something was very, very wrong. Maya's footsteps echoed sharply on the sidewalk, bouncing off the walls of the jewelry store like a heartbeat I could feel in my chest. Mark's expression shifted instantly. Fear, relief, and pure, unguarded love mingled in a way that made my throat tighten. "Elena," he started, but I shook my head. I couldn't process him right now, not when a daughter I never knew existed was running toward him, her small hands reaching out. Maya skidded to a stop just a few feet away, eyes wide and shimmering. "Dad, I thought you weren't coming," she whispered, her voice trembling, fragile, and strong all at once. He knelt down, lowering himself to her level. "Maya, I promised I'd be here. Always." The way she flung herself into his arms made my heart ache in a way I didn't expect. This was his world, one he hadn't invited me into yet, one that existed without me, and maybe, in some ways, would always be his first priority. And yet, watching him cradle her, whispering comfort and soft reassurances, I realized something. The love he showed her wasn't the kind of love that could be measured or stolen. It was fatherly, unselfish, and patient. It didn't erase me, but it made me understand that he had a depth I'd never truly known. Mark looked up at me then, his hands still on Maya's shoulders. His eyes, full of worry, fear, and hope, met mine. I wanted to tell you before anything else. I was afraid you'd judge me or leave. I felt my chest tighten, and the anger I thought would consume me softened into a strange, reluctant empathy. I could see now that this secret hadn't been about hiding me. It had been about protecting her and trying to navigate a new, fragile relationship with a daughter he barely knew. Maya's gaze flicked between us, curiosity sparking behind her cautious smile. "Mom said I should get to know you, too," she said softly. The words stung, sweetly and painfully at once. Here was someone new, someone innocent, trying to bridge the gap between their father and me, not knowing the storm of emotions swirling between us. I took a deep breath, letting the cold winter air fill my lungs. The pain, the confusion, the fear, they were all still there. But now they were tempered with understanding, with perspective, with the knowledge that love is never as simple as you think. Mark extended a hand toward me. "Alina, I want you to be part of this too. Not instead of her, but with her, if you want that." I hesitated, glancing at Maya, then back at Mark. My heart fluttered like a bird trapped in a cage, but there was something in his eyes, a promise of honesty, of patience, of inclusion that made me step forward. And just like that, the icy distance of the morning seemed to melt. I reached for his hand, and together, the three of us stood there on the sidewalk, the winter air humming around us, hearts beating in a quiet, shared rhythm. I didn't know what the future held, or how the chapters of our lives would intertwine. But in that moment, I realized love isn't just about being chosen, it's about choosing together, even when the truth is hard, messy, and complicated. And for the first time in a long time, I believed we could do it together.